Okay, grade 9s, welcome to yet another video. I'm looking forward to seeing you face to face and actually teaching for a change, but until I'm feeling better, here we go. Alright, this is the introduction to the assessment task. We've referenced quite a lot. Here I'm going to give it to you formally. Now, I want to make something very clear. I don't want you to start actually writing your essay yet. What I want you to do, however, is start planning. And I'll tell you what I mean by that a little bit later. Okay, so don't get tempted to actually start writing out in full because I want to recap some things first. Due Tuesday, week 6, 8 a.m. I'll remind you of that when I actually see you face to face. There you go. All right, here we go. History does not repeat, but it does instruct. With reference to the text Animal Farm, choose a lesson we can learn from history, discuss how it is explored in the text, and how the lesson may be of relevance to current society. So as I've said to you a few times, what I want you to do is choose a lesson that we've seen in Animal Farm. Potential lessons are down here. So any of these are fine, and there's a chance that there are some lessons written in your books or iPads which aren't on this list. You are welcome to choose any of those as well. Potential lessons include resist injustice early, beware the mob, stay calm in an emergency, protect free speech, don't let distraction take your attention away from what matters, research dubious facts, don't let fear of the past or dreams of the future excuse wrongdoing in the present, and any others that we've talked about, or one of your choosing. Now, if you can think of another lesson in Animal Farm that we haven't talked about, chances are that'll be fantastic, but just check with me first before you get too far down the track, because I want to make sure it's going to work for this assignment. So, you're choosing one of those lessons, and then what you're doing is you are discussing how that lesson is shown within the text of Animal Farm and how it might be relevant to us in our current society. For example, if you choose Beware the Mob, what I would want you to do is show me examples in the text of Animal Farm where the mob has caused some harmful, bad, negative, problematic outcomes. So you'll actually discuss examples of that happening in the text. Obviously, you'll be looking at the sheep a lot if you do that. And then you'll be talking about what consequence that has within Animal Farm and how the mob or how the sheep actually lead to that consequence. Then the second part of the project, is talking about how that problem, the problem of mobs causing damage or harm in our society, how that happens, examples of it happening in the real world, how it happens, and obviously some lessons we can learn from that or how we might respond to that. Now you can choose any of these. When you choose it, I want you preferably to talk about current society. However, if you want to talk about historical examples too in the real world, that would be okay. Particularly, stay calm in emergency, resist injustice early, etc. They're all fine. I'll really quickly go through this and just talk you where my mind might go if I was choosing one of these lessons. Okay, resist injustice early. What would an example of that be? Almost anywhere. So it could be something that you see in our society. You might think, for example, the way we treat refugees might be unjust, and we should resist that in some way. You might think some practices that local authorities get up to. Sorry, my thinking isn't very good. That's part of the being crook. You might think that we have some local examples of people doing dodgy things. You might think some elements of our law systems or of our police system or even the way your parents or teachers interact with you. You might think there's something wrong there. You might want to talk about an appropriate way to resist that. Beware the mob we've talked about. Stay calm in an emergency. The most obvious one for this, for me, is actually, it's a little bit intense, but would be around the idea of terrorism. Our government has all sorts of laws at the moment which it has in place to justify fighting terrorism. For example, the Australian government wants to force our Snapchats and our Facebooks, etc., to make the apps hackable to the government. They want to be able to hack into those apps so they can see what the average person is sending to each other, just in case, those people are getting up to no good. And so they're saying there's an emergency of terrorism, and so they are saying we need to have tougher laws in the face of that. You might think that's a little bit iffy. All right, protect free speech. We see that happen quite a lot. At the moment in Australia, hate speech is illegal. You might think that's good, you might think that's problematic. There are lots of people trying to make it hard for people to have religious freedom. There are lots of people trying to make it difficult for people to believe that there are only two genders, for example, and fighting those people who speak out against that. Don't let distraction take your attention away from what matters. There are lots of things in the world which aren't ideal, yet we spend most of our time on Facebook or watching fires burn down factories in the United States or in Kenya or something, and all of a sudden we're watching that and we're forgetting about lots of things closer to home which we could actually do something about. Research dubious facts, that's fake news. We are bombarded with more information than any generation ever. That can be problematic, and some people either give us information that is downright wrong, or they give us one-sided information and lead us to believe things that are skewed. If you think that's a worthwhile listen, you're welcome to look into that. Don't let fear of the past or dreams of the future excuse wrongdoing in the present. That's a more niche sort of idea. I'll talk about that one-on-one if anyone wants to do it. And then any others, obviously. Cool. Hopefully that gave you a couple ideas of where you want to go. Now, when you present this to me as a finished copy, this is the criteria for when you present it to me. You're welcome to look at that, but I don't want you to focus on it too much, because all I want you to do for now is plan and research. Your job for this lesson or for these lessons is to choose one of these lessons that you're going to do. And then I want you to either take notes in dot point form, or if you prefer, create a mind map. And I want you to find all the examples within the text where your particular lesson is of relevance, the lessons we can learn from it, and how the animals could have combated it, or what they could have done. Then I want you to start Googling, researching, talk to your teacher, talk to your peers. You're very welcome to work in groups on this, so long as you stay on task. Talk about examples in the real world where you see examples of these things happening. I want you to research them. I want you to know them quite well. I want you to understand them with some depth. Then I want you to consider how we could respond to those. What could we do to actually learn those lessons? What might the actions we could take be to stop bad things happening in the future? Really quickly, this isn't to make us all scared and nervous and paranoid about the world, but one of the lessons of history is if you don't take them seriously, the chance of bad things happening again in the future are increased. So let's not go into this really scared and thinking something bad's just around the corner. I don't think that's the case. However, if we want to keep making sure that the world is as good as it can be, it's important that we, stay on our guard. Again, I'll use the example of the cyber safety stuff. It's not like every person you play Fortnite against, or every person you chat to on Snapchat or Instagram or whatever is a dodgy person in a dark corner just looking to steal your lunch money. But it is the case that there are some dodgy units out there, and it's important that we take steps to guard ourselves against that. Same thing with history and culture. 99% of, the overwhelming majority of our governments and people in authority do a great job. But it's important that we do learn the lessons to make it ever harder for bad things to happen again. Really sorry I'm not with you, grade 9s. I feel quite uncomfortable giving you an assessment task when I'm not there to help you through what I'm sure will be the very reasonable questions you have as you begin it. Let me just recap what I want you to do for these lessons today. Choose your lesson. Go through the book, go through your iPad, and find examples where that happened. You're welcome to do that in groups. When you find those examples, I want you to write down what happened and what the animals could have done to prevent it from happening. Next up, I want you to consider examples in the real world. My apologies for that email coming through. I'm sure that was far too loud for you. Then I want you to find examples in the real world where these things are either happening or at risk of happening. I want you to research those examples. They can be in Australia, in Adelaide, in the United States, in Europe, wherever you like. Find examples of them happening, how they are happening, and what or where they're at risk of happening, and what people could do to actually combat that. How they could learn these histories and what actions they could take. Good luck, grade 9s. My apologies I'm not there. See you as soon as I can. Catch ya.